Most people read Psalm 23 and think this is about comfort, protection, and peace. But what if I told you it also contains a blueprint for financial breakthrough that God has hidden in plain sight? That the same psalm that promises, "I shall not want," is actually a step-by-step guide to accessing wealth beyond what you imagine? Many chase money through hard work alone, missing the spiritual keys that unlock doors no human effort can open. In this message, you're going to discover how to align your life with God's provision, how obedience and faith create access to hidden riches, and how daily application of Psalm 23 can shift your finances in ways that feel miraculous. By the end, you won't just see Psalm 23 the same way, you'll see the path to wealth God designed for you. When people hear Psalm 23, they immediately think about peace, comfort, and God walking with them through life's valleys. And yes, all of that is true, but there's something most people completely miss. There's a hidden layer in this psalm, a spiritual dimension that directly affects your financial life. You see, wealth is not just about money. It's not just about business deals or investments. Real wealth starts in the spirit. If your spirit is aligned with God's principles, if your heart, mind, and actions are in harmony with His word, then provision, real, lasting provision, begins to flow naturally into your life. That's why I say wealth is spiritual before it's financial. Think about it. How many people work hard every day, chasing money, thinking success is all about effort, sweat, and strategy, and yet they struggle? Why does this happen? Because they're missing the spiritual foundation. They're trying to build a financial house without laying a spiritual foundation. God's provision, the true kind, begins when your soul recognizes Him as the source. Psalm 23 starts with, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." That's not just a poetic phrase. That is a spiritual declaration of provision. When you internalize that, you understand that lack is not part of your life because God is your shepherd, guiding every step, orchestrating every opportunity. You begin to see wealth not as something you pursue desperately, but as something that naturally flows to the one who walks in alignment with God. And here's the key. If you want financial breakthroughs, you must first see provision as a spiritual matter. You must understand that the God who provides rest for your soul can also open doors for your business, increase your income, and expand your influence. Spiritual alignment attracts the unseen forces of opportunity and favor. You cannot manufacture this with human effort alone. No amount of hustling, networking, or strategy can replace the spiritual connection that Psalm 23 reveals. The shepherd leads, the shepherd provides, and the shepherd's guidance positions you to prosper in ways that defy human logic. Many people think, I need a strategy, I need a plan, I need to make the right moves. And yes, planning is important, but if your spirit is not connected, all the planning in the world will yield very little. God designed your life so that when your spiritual house is in order, financial provision becomes a natural byproduct. The rich, the abundant, the successful, they understand this. They are people who first honor God with their heart, with their integrity, and with their obedience. Their wealth is a reflection of spiritual alignment. You might have talent, knowledge, and skill, but if you're disconnected from the source, you'll always feel the ceiling of limitation. Let me tell you another truth. Your mindset is part of this spiritual foundation. Psalm 23 teaches you to trust. Trust that the shepherd knows the paths you should take. Trust that provision is already on its way. Trust that what is meant for you cannot be stopped. This trust shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance. It positions you to receive what you are meant to receive because your heart no longer doubts, fears, or wrestles with lack. Spiritual wealth changes your perspective, and your perspective ultimately changes your reality. When you grasp this principle, you start making different choices. You start operating in integrity because you know God is watching, and you honor your commitments because you understand that alignment with divine principles multiplies everything you touch. You start investing in relationships, in education, in opportunities that are aligned with your values and your purpose. You stop chasing every shiny object and focus on what the shepherd is leading you toward. And the incredible thing is, God begins to move on your behalf in ways that look miraculous to the world. Doors open, resources appear, unexpected opportunities come because you first invested in your spirit. The takeaway is simple but profound. If you want wealth that lasts, wealth that doesn't slip through your fingers, you must start with your spirit. Nurture it, align it, and position yourself under the guidance of God, the ultimate shepherd. Because when your spirit prospers, your finances follow naturally. Everything else becomes secondary. Your bank account, your business, your career, these are all extensions of the spiritual alignment you cultivate. Remember this, wealth is spiritual before it's financial. Begin with the spirit, honor God in your heart, and watch how he begins to shift everything in your favor. The blessings are already yours when your soul walks in alignment. Most people never experience the full measure of what God has for them because they don't truly understand his provision. They see wealth, opportunity, and success as things they have to chase, things that depend solely on human effort. They hustle, they grind, they strategize, and yet somehow they never quite arrive at the breakthrough they've been seeking. And the reason is simple. They've missed the spiritual principle that unlocks it all. You see, God's provision is not passive, it's intentional. It's not just about giving you what you need, it's about positioning you to walk into opportunities that others cannot see, doors that remain closed to those who try to rely on their own understanding. Understanding this changes everything. When you grasp that God is not only your source, but also the orchestrator of your opportunities, your entire approach to life transforms. Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." That is not just a comforting thought. That is a declaration of provision, of opportunity, and of favor. When you internalize this truth, you begin to understand that every circumstance, every person, every interaction is a potential avenue for God to provide what you need. The shepherd doesn't just supply the sheep with what they see. He leads them to green pastures, to still waters, to the places they could never find on their own. And in the same way, God is leading you to opportunities that you cannot manufacture with your intellect, your network, or your effort alone. The more you understand his provision, the more you see the unseen. Think about this. Opportunities often exist right in front of people, but they're invisible because the person hasn't recognized the hand of God guiding them. They see a random chance, a coincidence, or they dismiss it entirely because it doesn't fit into their human plan. But when your eyes are open to divine provision, you see opportunity everywhere. You start recognizing doors that were always there, but only available to those who understand that God's hand is behind them. You begin to hear the whispers of direction that tell you where to go, who to meet, and what to invest in. You learn to discern the difference between human hustle and God-ordained provision. Opportunities are not just about money or business deals. They come in many forms: relationships, mentorship, insight, timing. God positions people, information, and circumstances in your life that will accelerate your journey. But if you fail to understand that his provision is intentional, you'll miss them. You'll see a job offer and think it's luck. You'll meet a mentor and think it's coincidence. You'll stumble upon an idea and dismiss it as random. Understanding God's provision means seeing the divine fingerprints on everything. It means realizing that when you step in faith, doors will open where walls once stood. Here's another point. When you understand that God provides, you start to operate differently in your everyday life. You stop acting from a place of fear or scarcity. You stop scrambling, hustling, and worrying. You start making decisions from a place of abundance and alignment. You begin to invest in relationships, in businesses, in opportunities that matter because you trust that God is guiding you. You don't have to chase every opportunity that comes your way. Instead, you wait for the ones that align with divine provision, and when they come, you recognize them immediately. And this understanding creates a mindset that is magnetic to wealth and favor. People and circumstances are drawn to those who walk in alignment with divine provision. They see someone operating not out of desperation, but out of clarity, confidence, and spiritual understanding. That person naturally attracts opportunities that others miss. It's not luck. It's not coincidence. It's the result of seeing God's provision clearly and walking in obedience to it. Many people think opportunity is something they have to create, something they must manufacture. And yes, action is necessary. But understanding provision changes the type of action you take. Instead of running after every lead, you pursue the ones that God has positioned for you. Instead of making desperate decisions, you wait for guidance. Instead of measuring success by appearances, you measure it by alignment with the one who provides. And when you do, you start walking into doors that were never available before. You experience breakthroughs that seem impossible to those who rely on their own understanding. So remember this, understanding God's provision is the key that unlocks opportunities. It's not just a concept to think about, it's a principle to live by. When you see provision as intentional, when you recognize the divine orchestration in your life, doors begin to open, relationships align, opportunities multiply, resources appear, and everything that you need to walk in abundance starts to flow naturally. Your breakthrough is not waiting for a better strategy, a bigger idea, or a more perfect timing. Your breakthrough begins when you see provision as God sees it, when you recognize the intentionality behind every opportunity, and when you step in faith to walk through the doors He opens. One of the most overlooked truths about wealth and success is that it is not just about knowledge, strategy, or hard work. All of those things matter, but there is a spiritual principle that is far more powerful, and it is hidden in plain sight. Obedience. Obedience is what creates access to blessings that remain hidden to the majority of people. You see, God has placed certain opportunities, certain resources, and certain levels of favor in the lives of those who will act in alignment with His instructions. These blessings are not earned in the human sense. They are unlocked through obedience, through aligning your actions with His guidance. Psalm 23 tells us, He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. That is a path of obedience. That is the pathway to hidden blessings. Most people live their lives thinking that blessings come from luck or timing. They think if they work harder, grind longer, or outsmart everyone, they will receive what they want. And yes, hard work has a place, but without obedience, that work is often fruitless. The shepherd leads the sheep where they need to go, not where they want to go. And when you are willing to follow, even when it seems inconvenient, even when it doesn't make sense, you begin to access blessings that were intentionally reserved for those who choose to obey. The doors you didn't even know existed suddenly begin to open. Let me tell you another truth. Obedience requires trust. It requires that you believe in the unseen, that you step in faith even when the path is unclear. Many people fail to access hidden blessings because they are only willing to take steps they can understand, steps that are visible to their human eyes. But God's blessings are often hidden in the very areas that challenge you, that stretch you, that require you to move beyond your comfort zone. When you obey, even in the small things, you demonstrate that your heart is aligned with His will, and that alignment unlocks doors that otherwise remain closed. There is a pattern in life that cannot be ignored. The more obedient you are, the more access you gain. The more willing you are to follow divine guidance, the more favor begins to flow. You will meet people who appear at exactly the right time. Opportunities will present themselves that others cannot see. Resources will come from unexpected places. And all of this happens because you have positioned yourself to receive through obedience. It's not magic, it's a principle. The universe, or God's economy, if you will, is structured in such a way that obedience triggers provision. And here's something most people miss. Obedience is not just about following instructions blindly. It is about aligning your entire life, your decisions, your actions, your business practices, and your mindset with the values and principles that God has set forth. When your life reflects integrity, faithfulness, and humility, you naturally create an environment where hidden blessings can flow. You become someone who can handle what is being released, someone who is worthy to receive what is already available in the spiritual realm. The irony is that many people resist obedience because it feels limiting or inconvenient. They say, I'll do it my way, I'll make my own rules, I don't need to follow some spiritual instructions. And what happens? The blessings stay hidden. Opportunities pass them by. Favor that could have elevated them remains in someone else's hands. Obedience is the key that unlocks the provision that is already there, waiting for those willing to act in alignment with divine principles. Let me give you a practical way to see this in action. Start by recognizing the small areas where obedience is required. It could be as simple as honoring your commitments, speaking truthfully, or giving generously when you feel it's inconvenient. These small acts of obedience open you up to much larger blessings. They create a pattern of alignment in your life. You begin to notice that doors start opening, not because you force them open, but because your willingness to follow has positioned you to receive what is already waiting for you. Obedience also protects you. Many times, hidden blessings are paired with timing and circumstances. If you are disobedient, you may attempt to reach those blessings prematurely, and in doing so, you sabotage yourself. The shepherd in Psalm 23 knows the best time and the right way. Following his lead ensures that you receive the blessing fully, safely, and abundantly. Obedience is not restrictive, it is strategic. It places you on the path to maximum favor, abundance, and success. So understand this clearly. Hidden blessings are not random. They are reserved. They are intentional. They are waiting for those who will act in faith and in obedience. Every time you align your actions with God's guidance, every time you choose the path of righteousness, every time you step forward in faith, even when it doesn't make sense, you are accessing the hidden treasures that others will never see. Obedience is the gateway. Follow the shepherd. Walk the path laid before you, and watch how the hidden blessings that have been reserved for you begin to reveal themselves in ways that exceed your expectations. Faith is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and yet most people underestimate it when it comes to creating wealth. They think success comes from hard work, skill, strategy, or luck. And while those things play a role, they will never produce exponential results without faith. Faith is the multiplier. Faith is the force that turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. When you look at Psalm 23 and read, "I shall not want," you are not just reading words of comfort. You are reading a declaration of faith in provision, in guidance, and in abundance. And when you choose to operate from faith, resources begin to multiply in ways that logic cannot explain. Many people look at their resources, money, time, energy, skills, and they say, this is all I have. They operate in scarcity thinking, believing that what they see is all there is. And when you operate from that mindset, opportunities feel limited and growth feels impossible. But faith changes that. Faith says, God is my provider and he can multiply what I already have. It is not about pretending there is more than there is. It is about trusting the invisible power that transforms what is available into something far greater. Faith activates provision, it activates favor, and it positions you to receive resources that are not yet visible. Think about a farmer who plants seeds in faith. He doesn't plant just one seed and dig it up the next day to see if it grew. He plants the seeds, he waters them, and he trusts the process. Faith tells him that the harvest is coming even before the first sprout appears. And in the same way, when you step out in faith, you begin to see multiplication. Opportunities appear, income streams grow, partnerships form, and resources increase. What starts as a little begins to become much because faith creates the conditions for abundance to flow. Many people fail to see multiplication because they want immediate results. They want to see something tangible before they act. But multiplication in life often starts with invisible action, action fueled by belief in the unseen. When you act in faith, you are tapping into forces that cannot be measured by human standards. Faith allows God to take what you have, whatever your seed is, and expand it far beyond your imagination. And the most incredible part is that the multiplication is not just for you. It flows to others. It creates impact, and it builds momentum. Faith never works in isolation. It generates influence, opportunities, and abundance that reach beyond what you initially envisioned. Look at your own life. Think about the times when you trusted something you couldn't see, when you stepped out and it worked out in ways that felt miraculous. That was faith in action. That was the principle of multiplication at work. Faith takes the small, the limited, the unseen, and transforms it into something overflowing. And this principle works in finances, in relationships, in career, and in every area of life. When you operate in faith, you no longer see lack, you see potential, possibilities, and provision waiting to manifest. Faith also shifts your mindset. When you believe that God can multiply your resources, you stop hoarding, you stop worrying, and you stop making decisions based on fear. You become generous because you understand that multiplication is coming. You take risks that align with your purpose because you trust that provision is already on the way. You pursue opportunities that others avoid because they cannot see the potential. Faith opens your eyes to possibilities that would otherwise remain invisible. It positions you to move in alignment with divine timing, which is far more effective than any plan or strategy you could create on your own. The principle of multiplication is simple. You cannot multiply what you do not give in faith. Giving in faith, whether it is your time, your money, your knowledge, or your effort, creates the conditions for God to multiply it. That is why generosity is often tied to breakthrough. When you give expecting nothing in return, but trusting that God will multiply what you've invested, you activate a process that brings resources back to you in ways that exceed what you gave. Faith takes the ordinary and produces the extraordinary because it aligns your actions with divine principles of increase. So the question you have to ask yourself is this: are you operating from fear and limitation, or are you stepping out in faith and trusting that multiplication is already at work? Are you holding back because you cannot see the end, or are you acting boldly because you trust the process, the promise, and the provision? Faith multiplies resources and it multiplies opportunities. It turns scarcity into abundance, limitation into possibility, and the invisible into the visible. Your breakthrough does not come from grinding harder or hustling longer. Your breakthrough comes from faith. When you believe in the unseen, when you trust the promise, when you act in alignment with divine guidance, your resources begin to grow exponentially. And what starts as a small seed in your life becomes a harvest that changes everything. It's one thing to understand these principles. Wealth is spiritual, provision unlocks opportunities, obedience brings hidden blessings, and faith multiplies resources. But if you don't apply them in your life, none of it will matter. Knowledge without action is wasted energy. Understanding without application is like standing at the edge of a river and hoping to get across by thinking about it. The river will not part, and you will remain stuck. Practical application is what turns faith into fortune, what turns knowledge into wealth, and what takes spiritual principles from the page into your life. The reality is that most people pray, meditate, or read about abundance, but they stop short of applying what they learn. They say, I believe God will provide, but they never follow through with actions that align with that belief. They say, I trust God, yet their decisions are dictated by fear, doubt, or comfort. Faith without action remains dormant, like a seed that is never planted. The moment you apply what you believe, the moment you step into action, consistent with divine principles, is the moment transformation begins. Application activates the spiritual laws that govern provision and multiplies the results in ways that appear miraculous to the world. Practical application begins with the small, consistent steps. It begins with your daily choices, your attitude, and the way you handle what is already in your hands. Psalm 23 tells us, "He leads me in paths of righteousness." That's a roadmap for action. You are being guided, but it is your responsibility to walk the path. If you want your finances to change, if you want opportunities to open, if you want blessings to manifest, you must apply the guidance you receive. That could mean budgeting differently, investing wisely, pursuing opportunities you normally avoid, or being generous when it feels inconvenient. Every deliberate, aligned action is a seed planted that God can multiply. One of the biggest mistakes people make is expecting immediate results without taking consistent, practical steps. They pray, they believe, and then they wait for some sudden breakthrough without ever moving toward it. Faith without action leaves potential untapped. The universe operates on principle. God's provision flows to those who act. He does not force blessings into your life without your cooperation. The shepherd leads, but you must walk the path. Every decision, every step, every act of obedience is part of the process that allows faith to turn into fortune. Practical application also means putting systems in place that support growth. If you want wealth, you must manage what you already have well. If you want opportunity, you must position yourself to receive it. If you want favor, you must demonstrate integrity and consistency in your actions. Applying principles is not passive. It requires discipline, focus, and persistence. It requires turning understanding into measurable, repeatable actions that build momentum over time. The more consistent your application, the more natural the multiplication becomes. Another key aspect of application is timing. You can know what to do, but if you do not act at the right time, opportunities pass by. Practical application involves discernment, awareness, and courage. It is acting when the moment presents itself, not hesitating out of fear or overthinking. It is trusting God's guidance enough to move decisively, knowing that even if the outcome is not immediately clear, the action aligns with divine law. That is how faith is transformed into tangible results. Many people also fail because they try to apply principles in a half-hearted way. They give a little, they obey a little, they trust a little, but multiplication requires wholehearted application. You cannot dip a toe in the river and expect to cross it. You must step fully into alignment, fully into obedience, fully into action. Every step taken in faith, when consistently applied, compounds over time. You may not see immediate results, but the accumulation of faithful actions produces exponential returns. Application also trains your heart and mind. As you consistently apply these principles, your confidence grows, your discernment sharpens, and your ability to recognize opportunities increases. You begin to see patterns where you once saw chaos. You start to anticipate provision because you have created a lifestyle that allows blessings to flow into your life. Faith is no longer theoretical. It becomes practical, actionable, and measurable. It turns into a force that drives results in every area of life, including finances, relationships, career, and personal growth. So understand this: knowledge alone is not enough. Understanding without action will never produce lasting wealth. Faith without practical application is idle hope. Obedience without implementation is wasted opportunity. True abundance comes when you take the spiritual principles you believe in and consistently apply them in your life. That is what turns faith into fortune. That is what converts understanding into wealth. That is what positions you to receive blessings that others never see. The key is simple: act in alignment with what you know. Step boldly, consistently, and faithfully. Plant your seeds, walk the paths, trust the guidance, and apply every principle in practical ways. The fortune you are seeking is waiting for you, but it only manifests when you take action.